Picture this, a bus so stunning that passengers would book cross-country trips just to ride it. The same bus that made seasoned mechanics throw their tools and walk away. This is the paradox of the Trailways Eagle, the most beautiful disaster in American transportation history. In the 1950s, two giants battled for control of America's highways. Greyhound dominated with practical, reliable coaches. Trailways was tired of being second fiddle. They wanted something revolutionary, a bus that would make people choose the highway over the sky. What they got was the most controversial vehicle ever to roll on American asphalt, a machine that looked space-age but broke down constantly. Today, we're diving into this wild story of ambition, beauty, and spectacularly expensive failure. Because sometimes the most interesting stories aren't about success, they're about dreams that flew too close to the sun. Let's go back to 1956. Trailways executives watched commercial aviation steal their customers. They needed something dramatic that screamed luxury and innovation, so they looked to Europe, where Belgian coach builders were creating buses that looked more like spacecraft than highway vehicles. The man they chose was Count Alexis de Sosnowski. Yes, an actual count. This guy had designed cars for Auburn and Cord, companies known for building automotive art. Working with Eagle International, Sosnowski created something unprecedented. The Eagle looked carved from a single aluminum by some futuristic sculptor. No harsh angles anywhere, just flowing curves that seemed to slice through air resistance itself. The front end swooped down like a sports car, and those side windows? Massive, panoramic portals that made the whole bus feel like a moving observation deck. Inside was pure 1950s luxury. Plush reclining seats with more legroom than modern business class. Individual reading lights that actually worked. Air conditioning that could cool Death Valley. Rich fabrics and elegant curves that made you feel like you were traveling in a first-class lounge, not a highway coach. From 1956 to 1961, they built just 1,347 Eagles. Compare that to Greyhound's annual production of over 3,000 buses, and you understand this was never about mass production. This was about making a statement. But here's the thing about making statements. Sometimes they come back to haunt you. For a few golden years in the late 50s and early 60s, the Eagle was the undisputed king of American highways. Passengers didn't just love it, they became genuinely obsessed with it. I found this story in a 1960 travel magazine. Businessman Robert Chen flew from New York to Chicago weekly for work. Then he tried the Eagle once. Just once. He immediately switched to taking the bus exclusively, adding 4 hours to his commute just for the experience. Flying feels like being shipped in a cargo container, he told the reporter. The Eagle feels like traveling in style. Travel agents started recommending Trailways over airlines for certain routes. Not because it was cheaper, because the experience was better. The Eagle's European-inspired air suspension was so smooth that passengers would joke about needing to check if they were still touching the ground. Trailways marketed it brilliantly. "Ride the Eagle" became their slogan, and it worked. When an Eagle pulled into a bus station, crowds would gather. Kids pointed, adults took pictures. It was like watching a celebrity arrive. Hollywood noticed too. The Eagle appeared in dozens of films and TV shows as the symbol of luxury travel. This wasn't just transportation, it was a cultural phenomenon that represented mid-century American optimism and the space age on wheels. But underneath that gorgeous aluminum skin, a very expensive nightmare was brewing. Here's where things get wild. Remember how I said the Eagle's beauty would become its curse? Well, buckle up because this gets expensive fast. First problem, every single body panel was custom shaped. When something got damaged, and buses get damaged a lot, you couldn't just order a replacement part. Each repair required hand-fabricated aluminum work that cost more than some operators made in a month. I talked to retired mechanic Frank Morrison, who worked on Eagles in Detroit. He said, "I remember the first time one came in with front-end damage. Simple fender bender that would cost maybe $200 to fix on a regular bus. This thing? We had to ship the entire front section back to the factory for rebuilding. 12 weeks and $3,000 later, we got it back. That was real money in 1959. The air suspension system was another money pit. Those European airbags would fail constantly, and each replacement required lifting the entire 35-foot, 15-ton bus. What should have been a quick fix turned into a day-long ordeal that ate profits like a hungry monster. But the real killer was the electrical system, European-inspired wiring harnesses that American mechanics had never seen before. When something went wrong, and something always went wrong, techs would spend hours just trying to figure out which wire went where. Frank Morrison again. I've seen grown men cry while staring at Eagle electrical schematics. Not joking, actual tears. The heating system alone had 47 different circuits. 47! A regular bus had maybe 8. The transmission was the final insult, a finicky European unit that required special fluids you couldn't buy at any regular parts store. When it broke, and it broke a lot, you were looking at weeks of downtime while waiting for parts to ship from Belgium. This thing looked like a highway jetliner, but sometimes it behaved like a stubborn mule that had given up on life. Operators found themselves in this impossible love-hate relationship. Passengers absolutely adored the Eagle, which meant 40% higher revenue per mile than conventional buses. But maintenance costs were eating 60% more of that revenue. It was like owning a racehorse that won every race but ate gold for breakfast. So if the Eagle was such a beautiful disaster, why did Trailways keep building them? The answer was pure, stubborn pride mixed with seriously optimistic accounting. By 1960, Trailways had invested over $15 million in the Eagle program, equivalent to about $150 million today. Admitting failure wasn't just expensive, it would have been humiliating. Meanwhile, Greyhound was watching this whole disaster unfold and taking notes. While Trailways struggled with their temperamental beauties, Greyhound focused on boring, reliable buses that might not win beauty contests, but could actually complete their routes without breaking down. The numbers tell the brutal story. In 1959, Trailways operated 347 Eagles and spent an average of $847 per month per bus on maintenance. Greyhound's conventional coaches, $312 per month. That difference added up to about $2 million annually across the fleet, money that could have bought 200 new conventional buses. By 1961, reality was setting in hard. The interstate highway system was expanding, which meant longer routes and higher speeds. The Eagle's finicky systems couldn't handle the increased stress. Breakdowns became so common that passengers started actively avoiding Eagle routes. The final nail in the coffin came in 1962 when Trailways quietly discontinued the Eagle program. Most of the surviving Eagles were sold off to smaller operators, converted to local service, or quietly retired to bus graveyards. By 1968, fewer than 200 Eagles remained in active service anywhere in America. But here's the weird thing about spectacular failures. Sometimes they become more fascinating than successes. Today, a surviving Eagle is worth more than it cost when new. Bus restoration enthusiasts will pay $50,000 or more for one, even if it needs a complete rebuild. There's something about that combination of stunning design and tragic flaws that makes the Eagle absolutely irresistible to collectors. Only about 47 Eagles survive today, scattered across museums, private collections, and restoration shops. The Smithsonian has one. So does the Henry Ford Museum. Each one draws crowds who can't believe something so beautiful was once considered a commercial failure. The restoration community has actually solved many of the Eagle's original problems. Modern air suspension components that work reliably, updated electrical systems that don't require a PhD to understand, reliable transmissions that don't need Belgian unicorn fluid shipped across the ocean. But here's what's really interesting. The Eagle's influence didn't die with Trailways. That emphasis on passenger comfort and visual appeal, it directly influenced the design of modern luxury coaches. Companies like Prevost and MCI still reference the Eagle when designing their premium models today. The Eagle taught the transportation industry a crucial lesson that still resonates. Beauty matters, but reliability matters more. The most successful modern coaches blend the Eagle's stunning visual appeal with Greyhound's rock-solid practical engineering. So why does the Trailways Eagle still matter 60 years later? Because it represents something uniquely American. The belief that we can build anything, solve any problem, and make it gorgeous while we're doing it. The Eagle embodies this eternal tension between vision and practicality, between what we want to build and what we can actually maintain. It's the same tension we see in every ambitious engineering project today, from the space shuttle to the latest electric vehicles. Today's tech companies launching revolutionary products that are beautiful but fragile. They're essentially following the Eagle playbook. The automotive industry's constant struggle between innovation and reliability. The Eagle wrote that story first, back in 1956. The Eagle failed as a commercial product, but it succeeded as something far more important. A reminder that shooting for the moon is always worth doing, even when you crash spectacularly. Every major innovation requires someone willing to risk everything on what seems like an impossible dream. Here's the thing about the Trailways Eagle. It was both a highway icon and an engineering disaster. It proved that beautiful design and practical engineering don't always play nice together. But maybe that's exactly what makes it so endlessly fascinating. The Eagle represents this very American idea that we should always reach for something better, something more beautiful, something that makes people stop and stare in wonder. Sometimes that works out perfectly. Sometimes you end up with a bus that looks like it belongs in a museum but spends more time in the repair shop. But here's what I've learned researching this story. The Eagles that survive today aren't just museum pieces gathering dust. They're rolling reminders that taking big risks and dreaming impossible dreams is always worth doing, especially when it doesn't work out the way you planned. So what do you think? Was the Trailways Eagle a highway icon that changed transportation forever? Or was it an engineering disaster that nearly bankrupted everyone who touched it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into automotive history, hit that subscribe button.